I mean, they call Bolsonaro the Trump of the tropics. And I think, that was, well, like Trump coming to power in the United States, Bolsonaro coming to power in Brazil was a massive step backwards because, if you go back to, say, 2004, 2005, the rate of deforestation in the Amazon was off the Richter scale. I mean, it was just a Wild West frontier, and it was being cleared at an unbelievable rate, mainly for like cattle ranching, for soya, but also, for animal feed, but also for timber. And I think that, one of the things that had happened and one of the things that Greenpeace had actually achieved was getting a soya moratorium in 2006. So ending deforestation for one of the main drivers was a really critical success. Later, similarly for cattle. And this was really driving deforestation rates down. I mean, it never got to zero, but they were being dramatically reduced. When Bolsonaro came to power, this went exactly into reverse. It started going up again. And what's happening now in Brazil is awful in terms of his threats now to go into indigenous lands, to start reopening mining and exploitation on indigenous people's lands. The threat that will pose to indigenous people is horrendous. But just broadly, the threats that the Amazon rainforest now face are really awful. So I think this election is going to be absolutely critical for the future of the world. I mean, it will be as big as, if not bigger than Trump being defeated in the United States, because the damage being wrought on the Amazon, the impact of that on the climate and on biodiversity cannot be underestimated. So Bolsonaro being defeated in November is absolutely critical, and I think that's one election that we all need to watch very closely and do everything in our power to try and make sure that he's not re-elected.
What do you think international countries or organisations like Greenpeace can do?
We have to be careful, because I think that if you're seen from the outside as interfering in an election, that will backfire. But I think being able to support indigenous people and their protests and their campaign for their rights, and being able to support, civil society and civil society organisations in Brazil, I think that that's what's going to really drive the change and be a really important part of, actually getting Bolsonaro out of power. But I think also, companies that are doing business in Brazil, are getting commodities from Brazil, I think that they've also got to make it really clear that if Bolsonaro gets re-elected, if he continues with these policies, then there will be no investment in Brazil.
Are you thinking of certain companies in particular?
Well, these are companies like Tesco and the other big supermarkets and the big food producers who are buying the commodities, who are driving the destruction that's happening in Brazil.